Good morning. Today is Tuesday, November 19th. I'm Elizabeth Hasselbeck. This morning, word that senior White House officials saw this healthcare crisis coming back in March. Did the president know, or are his people keeping him out of the loop?
And speaking of cover-ups, just weeks before the 2012 election, unemployment numbers suddenly dropped to benefit the president, perhaps. Well, now word somebody may have been cooking the books in Washington.
Wow. Itching to get out of work early to hit happy hour? There's a new... I'm talking to the crew.
Yeah.
There's a new virus going around that could make it a reality, and you can give yourself that virus, actually inflict it on yourself, shoot yourself up. Fox and Friends starts now.
This is General Vallely. You're watching Fox and Friends. Sit up straight, Brian.
General Vallely out and about. He's been to Syria 2 or 3 times since this whole civil war happened. And he's watching right now, back and forth. Well, we were just checking, Steve. Usually it's important.
You were talking about the virus, and I just got this message just a second ago.
Oh, no.
Supposedly from Western Union, my money transfer is available.
Oh, fantastic.
So all I got to do is push that button right there, give them my private information. You know what I'm going to put in? I'm going to put in LauraIngraham.com because she's standing by right now in our nation.
Does she have that virus? Does happy hour call your name, Laura?
First of all, I have 3 small children. I have no social life. Okay?
There is no happy hour.
I am with you there, Laura.
Right? Yeah, Elizabeth, you know what time it is.
Oh, yes.
They're delightful children. Every hour is happy hour. Hey, Laura,
Exactly.
let's talk about something not so happy. We're getting to know more and more about Obamacare. It seems like at every corner, it couldn't be worse. Now, there is a story out in the Washington Post. You're sitting down in Washington right now. McKinsey & Company, the great and very famous, very powerful consulting firm, they did a presentation for members of the cabinet and the White House and the administration back in March and April, saying this website so far is going to really stink. In the audience right there, Kathleen Sebelius, Marilyn Tavenner, the chief White House technical guy, they all knew. The question is, do you think they told the president, or was he completely oblivious to it all?
Well, we know that Mark Childress, who was the deputy chief of staff at the White House, he was at a number of these meetings. So McKinsey, I think right now at this point, was looking at the website thinking, wait a second, we need this, 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 and this. We got a lot of problems here, and we have not a single one person in charge to coordinate everything, which you need a quarterback for a project like this. And it obviously wasn't Kathleen Sebelius. She clearly was not doing due diligence necessary, or she was so committed to that deadline of October 1st, they were just, no matter what, this thing is launching. So did Childress share this with Valerie Jarrett at the White House or with any of the other top staff? If he didn't, well, that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
And if he did, it's also a problem.
Right.
So there's more dysfunction in this White House than I think we even know about now.
Laura, you mentioned quarterback. What about general manager here? What about the president? I want you to listen to this one more time. November 14th, the president saying, look, I didn't know this was happening. Totally taken off guard. Take a listen.
On the website, I was not informed directly that the website would not be working as the way it was supposed to. Had I been informed, I wouldn't be going out saying, boy, this is going to be great. You know, I'm accused of a lot of things, but I don't think I'm stupid enough to go around saying this is going to be like shopping on Amazon or Travelocity a week before the website opens if I thought that it wasn't going to work.
And Kathleen Sebelius, 2 weeks later, who was in that meeting, came forward and said, everything's on track, everything's fine. They could have thrown up some red flags then. And if they knew this and had this meeting, this briefing in April/May, why wouldn't they take the Republicans' offer of a delay in September and with a wink and a nod say, this is exactly what we were hoping for?
Because they're fanatics. Fanatics do things that don't make a lot of sense logically because they're fanatics. They're fanatics for redistributing wealth, okay? And so a deadline was going to be met come hell or high water. And one thing that I just caught when you played that soundbite again, and I probably heard it 5 times on my radio show and now today, he said, I was never told directly about problems with the website. Directly.
Yes.
Well, is Mark Childress, when he says, look, Mr. President, we got some problems, or tells Messina or tells Valerie Jarrett, there are some real problems. We got to have one person in charge here. We could be hitting a disaster come October. Did he tell Jarrett, and did Jarrett tell Barack Obama, I don't know. We just found out today that, by the way, the Obamas celebrated Valerie Jarrett's birthday at a very fancy Washington restaurant over the weekend. They're very tight. So the whole thing doesn't make a lot of sense, but I just heard that word directly, and perhaps that's a tell.
Maybe somebody in the White House press room will ask, did the president hear it indirectly? We had Scott Walker, the governor of the great state of Wisconsin, on just about 45 minutes ago. We asked him about whether he felt that the catastrophe that is the rollout is the fact that this is a president who's never run anything before. Here's the governor who has.
There's a lot of critiques of late that apparently, and I'll let others comment on the sources on this, but so much of what's happening in the White House and in the administration is driven by the political team, not the policy team. As a governor, what we learned, and I would say not just me, but other governors out there, is you got to talk to your policy team first to make sure you can actually do what you're promising out there. In our state, I hope one of the things people know is whether you like me or hate me, you don't have to wonder if I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do. That's not happening in this White House.
You need a chief executive who's been an executive.
Yeah, that's interesting from Scott Walker, since a lot of us think he's going to be running for president. You need that chief executive experience. One thing we know is that the president, over the last several decades, has marinated himself in theory, right? Mostly progressive theory, liberal theory. And that's fine when you're at Oberlin or Columbia or Harvard. But in the real world, practicality has to matter. Common sense has to matter. And I think Walker's right. I mean, without that understanding that, look, I want every team member in the White House, I want to go around, we're going to do a session, a due diligence session. I want to understand how this website's going to work, and I want to see that all the troubleshooting that needed to be done has been done. We're going to do this at the White House. We're going to spend a Saturday actually doing this instead of spending Saturdays doing other things as he's known to do. You have to do that. You have to do that as a chief executive. You can't just take someone's word for it. Like Mark Childress comes in and says, well, boss, things are going pretty well. Or Valerie Jarrett. You got to sit down and spend the time. He never did that, clearly.
The no-drama Obama policy, which worked for him in the past, is causing a lot of inefficiencies, as we're seeing now. Now, let's talk about the unemployment rate. Remember those numbers that came out in September of last year that showed unemployment dropping, even though there were so few jobs gained and acquired, and the job losses were high.
Just before the election.
Yeah, just before the election. Jack Welch was one of the people who went with his gut and said there's something with these numbers, something fishy here. It's amazing what the Chicago guys will do to win an election. It turns out in the New York Post today, they quote somebody who came forward and says, yeah, I work for the census. I kind of made up some of these numbers and was told via a phone conversation. I forgot the exact words they went on to say, but the quote was, go ahead and fabricate, make up what it was. And they go ahead and fabricate some conversations and filled up some forms as if people got acquired jobs.
I can't wait to hear your take on that.
What's your thought on that, Laura?
Doesn't this remind you of the Acorn? Remember they were registering 5 and 6 people to vote for any given election, all that fraud. Look, guys, this is why people have such a low opinion of government today, especially President Obama's numbers. People don't believe what they're saying. And I remember I was on Fox and Friends, I believe, with you guys talking about this at the time. And all the people on the left were like, you guys are nuts. You guys are conspiracy theorists. They demeaned and dismissed Jack Welch. He actually is someone who ran something as big as GE. And he said, like, this doesn't make sense given what I'm seeing out there in the jobs landscape. These numbers don't make sense. They were actually making reports up, so making individuals up, claiming that individuals, we don't know how many, but perhaps as many as hundreds of them, which then translates into a skewed jobs report, in saying that these people had various jobs, a variety of jobs. How long has this been going on? We have fraud and negligence in the way health care was rolled out. We have fraud or negligence in the way the jobs numbers were reported. What else? Yeah. What else don't we know that's made up?
It sounds like the jobs were going back like 3 years from right now. So can you imagine if we would have had a curious mainstream media asking some hard questions, exposing this stuff before the election? Things could have been a little different. All right, she's going to go do a radio show on great radio stations all across the country. Laura Ingraham, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Great to see you guys.
And don't be surprised if it emerges that the IRS is investigating Tea Party groups. Just keep an eye for that. Maybe that has something to do with it.
Just imagine if that would have come out before the election.
Imagine.
All that stuff.
Without consequence. Well.